I never imagined that discovering my promised $40,000 raise had been deliberately sabotaged would lead me to uncover a corporate conspiracy that would change everything. Standing in my manager's office, holding the original signed promotion agreement, I watched Sandra from Human Resources claim the paperwork was mysteriously misplaced while avoiding my direct gaze. The betrayal cut deeper when I realized my college roommate's younger brother had just received the exact position and salary that should have been mine. My faith in corporate fairness shattered completely as the truth became undeniable. This wasn't an administrative mistake. 3 years ago, I walked through the glass doors of Sterling Financial Group with nothing but determination and my finance degree from Arizona State University. The investment firm occupied 12 floors of a sleek downtown Phoenix building, and I felt proud to join their team as a junior analyst. My name is Jacqueline, and back then I believed hard work always led to fair rewards. Sterling Financial specialized in wealth management for middle market clients throughout Arizona and New Mexico. The company managed approximately $800 million in assets, making it a respected regional player in the financial services industry. During my internship, I impressed the senior staff with my analytical skills and client communication abilities, which earned me a full-time position upon graduation. My supervisor, Robert Hartwell, was a distinguished man in his mid-40s with silver-streaked hair and an expensive suit collection. He projected confidence during client meetings and seemed genuinely invested in developing junior staff. Robert had worked at Sterling Financial for 12 years, climbing from associate advisor to senior portfolio manager. His office walls displayed numerous industry awards and client appreciation letters. For 3 years, I threw myself into every assignment with enthusiasm. I analyzed market trends, prepared investment proposals, and built relationships with clients who appreciated my thorough research and honest recommendations. My client retention rate reached 96%, significantly higher than the department average of 88%. I also implemented a new filing system that reduced document retrieval time by 40%, saving the company approximately $200,000 annually. Last November, during my annual performance review, Robert praised my exceptional contributions. He highlighted my success training the newest analyst team, my innovative approaches to risk assessment, and my ability to explain complex financial concepts to nervous investors. The review meeting took place in his corner office, overlooking the bustling streets of downtown Phoenix. Robert leaned back in his leather chair and smiled warmly. He explained that Sterling Financial wanted to promote outstanding employees who demonstrated leadership potential and client management excellence. My performance had caught the attention of senior management, and they were prepared to offer me a significant advancement opportunity. The promotion would elevate me from senior analyst to senior investment advisor, a position that included managing high-value portfolios and developing new business relationships. More importantly, the role came with a substantial salary increase from $65,000 to $105,000 annually, plus a commission structure that could add another $30,000 to $50,000 based on portfolio performance. Robert presented the formal promotion agreement on official Sterling Financial letterhead. The document detailed my new responsibilities, compensation structure, and expected start date of January 15th. I read through every clause carefully, noting the professional development opportunities and enhanced benefit package. Everything seemed perfectly legitimate and well-deserved after years of dedicated service. Without hesitation, I signed the agreement and shook Robert's hand firmly. He assured me that Human Resources would process all paperwork within 30 days and I should expect confirmation by mid-December. I felt incredibly grateful for his mentorship and the company's recognition of my efforts. That evening, I celebrated with my roommate by cooking dinner and calling my parents in Tucson. My father, who had worked construction for 35 years before retiring, expressed immense pride in my corporate success. My mother, a former elementary school teacher, reminded me how far I had come, since my college struggles with advanced mathematics courses. January 15th came and went without any communication from human resources. I waited patiently, assuming the holiday season had delayed administrative processes. By February 1st, I decided to approach Robert about the status of my promotion. He appeared genuinely surprised and promised to investigate the situation immediately. Robert returned from his meeting with Human Resources looking confused and slightly frustrated. He explained that Sandra Mitchell, the department's Human Resources representative, claimed she had no record of any promotion agreement for me. Sandra suggested I might have misunderstood the nature of our performance review discussion. This response shocked me completely. I remembered every detail of our November meeting, including Robert's specific comments about senior management approval and the formal paperwork we both signed. I offered to provide my copy of the agreement, but Robert said he would handle the situation internally first. Days turned into weeks, with no resolution. Sandra continued to deny any knowledge of my promotion, treating me with barely concealed irritation whenever I inquired about the status. She claimed that all personnel actions required multiple approvals and proper documentation, neither of which existed in my case. Frustrated by the bureaucratic runaround, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Using my security badge, I returned to the office one evening after most employees had departed. The building felt eerily quiet as I made my way to Robert's office on the 8th floor. Robert's office door was locked, but I knew he sometimes left his filing cabinet accessible when working late. I tried the cabinet drawers systematically, finding most secured except for one that opened with gentle pressure. Inside, I discovered numerous employee files, contract documents, and correspondence. Buried among the papers, I found a folder labeled with my name. My heart pounded as I opened it and discovered my original promotion agreement. However, the document bore a large red stamp reading "Void" across the signature page. A handwritten note in the margin stated, "Employee cannot access legacy client accounts per board directive." The discovery hit me like a physical blow. Someone had deliberately sabotaged my promotion, and they were actively covering their tracks. This wasn't an administrative error or miscommunication. Someone at Sterling Financial wanted to prevent my advancement, and they were willing to lie about official agreements to achieve their goal. I photographed the documents with my phone, ensuring every detail was clearly visible. The evidence proved that my promotion had been formally approved and then deliberately canceled through some internal process I knew nothing about. The reference to legacy client accounts suggested financial motivations behind the sabotage. Returning home that night, I felt a mixture of anger and determination. Someone had stolen my career advancement through deception and document manipulation. However, I now possessed proof of their actions, and I intended to use that evidence to demand accountability and justice. The discovery of my voided promotion documents consumed my thoughts for weeks. I couldn't concentrate on daily tasks without wondering who had orchestrated this betrayal and what they hoped to accomplish. The reference to the legacy client accounts intrigued me most, suggesting my advancement threatened someone's financial interests. Legacy client accounts represented Sterling Financial's most valuable portfolios inherited from the company's founding partners, who had built relationships with wealthy Arizona families over several decades. These accounts typically contained assets worth between $2 and $15 million, each generating substantial commission revenue for their assigned advisors. Managing even 3 or 4 legacy accounts could increase an advisor's annual income by over $100,000. I began researching Sterling Financial's organizational structure and recent personnel changes. Using LinkedIn company announcements and casual conversations with colleagues, I mapped out new hires and promotions from the past year. Several senior investment advisor positions had been filled during the same time frame as my blocked promotion. The most disturbing discovery involved Travis Coleman, a 26-year-old who started at Sterling Financial just 3 weeks earlier in what appeared to be the exact position I had been promised. Travis was the younger brother of Amanda, my college roommate and close friend for over 8 years. I remembered Amanda mentioning that Travis struggled to find suitable employment after graduating from a lesser-known business program with mediocre grades. Travis had no relevant investment experience beyond a brief stint selling life insurance policies for a small agency in Scottsdale. His resume showed gaps in employment and no demonstrated expertise in portfolio management or client relations. Yet somehow he had secured a senior-level position at a respected financial services firm. I decided to investigate Travis's hiring process through careful observation and strategic conversations. His assistant, a friendly woman named Carol, who often ate lunch in the break room, provided valuable insights without realizing their significance. Carol mentioned that Travis had impressed the hiring committee with innovative ideas about cost reduction and client retention strategies. My blood ran cold as Carol described Travis's presentation topics. He had proposed implementing a new filing system to improve efficiency, suggested training programs for junior analysts, and outlined strategies for maintaining high client satisfaction rates. These were precisely the innovations I had developed and implemented over the past 2 years at Sterling Financial. The realization struck me with devastating clarity. Someone had stolen my intellectual property and given it to Travis to secure his employment. My own creative work and proven strategies had been used to justify hiring an unqualified candidate while denying me the promotion I deserved. I spent the following week documenting every innovation I had contributed to Sterling Financial. The new filing system had reduced document retrieval time and saved the company substantial money. My training program for junior analysts had improved their performance metrics significantly. My client retention strategies had become standard practices throughout the department. Each of these contributions should have been credited to my professional record and supported my promotion. Instead, they had been appropriated and presented as Travis's original ideas during his job interview. The intellectual theft was systematic and deliberate, suggesting careful planning and inside knowledge of my work. The personal betrayal felt overwhelming. Amanda had been my closest friend since college, and I had shared details about my professional accomplishments during countless conversations over the years. She knew about my innovative approaches, my career goals, and my frustration with Sterling Financial's slow promotion process. I also realized that Amanda had attended Sterling Financial's annual company picnic last summer as my guest. During that event, she had mingled with employees, asked questions about the business, and even met Robert Hartwell briefly. At the time, I thought she was just being friendly and showing interest in my career. Now I wondered if she had been gathering information for ulterior purposes. The scope of the conspiracy began to crystallize in my mind. Someone with inside access to my work and performance records had systematically stolen my innovations. They had then provided this information to Travis, enabling him to secure the position that should have been mine. The timing wasn't coincidental. It was carefully orchestrated to eliminate me as competition while advancing a preferred candidate. I needed to understand the connections between all the players involved. Why would someone go to such elaborate lengths to block my promotion? Who benefited from Travis's hiring beyond Travis himself? What role did Amanda play in this scheme, and how much did she know about the impact on my career? The answers to these questions would determine my next steps. If this was simple nepotism or favoritism, I might be able to address it through normal company channels. However, if it represented something more sinister, I would need to consider external options, including legal action. My investigation had revealed intellectual property theft and deliberate career sabotage. The evidence was mounting, but I needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy before deciding how to proceed. The truth was clearly more complex and disturbing than a simple administrative error. The intellectual property theft evidence haunted me for days. I couldn't believe that my own innovations had been stolen to benefit Travis, but the facts were undeniable. I decided to confront Amanda directly, hoping our friendship would compel her to provide honest answers about her brother's suspicious hiring. Amanda lived in an upscale apartment complex in Scottsdale, about 20 minutes from downtown Phoenix. Her one-bedroom unit was tastefully decorated with modern furniture and artwork, reflecting her job as a marketing coordinator for a local advertising agency. We had maintained our friendship since college, sharing dinners, weekend trips, and lengthy conversations about our career aspirations. I arrived at her apartment on a Saturday afternoon, bringing coffee from our favorite shop as usual. Amanda greeted me warmly, but I noticed a slight tension in her demeanor that seemed unusual. She asked about work in general terms, avoiding specific questions about my recent experiences at Sterling Financial. I decided to approach the topic indirectly, congratulating her on Travis's new position and asking how he had managed to secure such an excellent opportunity. Amanda smiled proudly, explaining that Travis had really matured over the past year and developed impressive business insights. She credited his success to hard work and natural talent. When I mentioned the specific innovations Travis had presented during his interview, Amanda's expressions shifted subtly. She nodded along with my descriptions, but seemed to be choosing her words carefully. I described the filing system improvements and client retention strategies in detail, watching her reactions closely. Amanda claimed that Travis had developed these ideas independently based on his experience in the insurance industry and his business school coursework. However, her explanation sounded rehearsed and lacked the spontaneous detail that typically characterized her storytelling. She kept redirecting our conversation toward other topics. As we talked, I noticed family photographs displayed on Amanda's bookshelf that I hadn't seen during previous visits. One wedding photo caught my attention because it showed a large family gathering with multiple generations represented. Among the relatives, I recognized a familiar face, Robert Hartwell, my direct supervisor at Sterling Financial. The shock of recognition made me freeze momentarily. I studied the photograph more carefully, confirming that it was definitely Robert standing among Amanda's extended family members. He appeared younger in the photo, suggesting it was taken several years ago, but his distinctive features were unmistakable. Amanda noticed my stare and followed my gaze to the family photo. Her face flushed slightly as she realized what I had discovered. She nervously explained that Robert was her uncle on her mother's side, and they occasionally saw him at family gatherings and holiday celebrations. This revelation transformed my understanding of the entire situation. Amanda's connection to Robert wasn't coincidental. It was a direct family relationship that explained how Travis had gained inside access to Sterling Financial. Robert had been feeding information about promotion opportunities to his relatives, giving them unfair advantages over other candidates. The pieces of the conspiracy fell into place with horrifying clarity. Amanda had been systematically gathering intelligence about my work performance, innovative contributions, and career progress through our friendship. She had then shared this information with Robert, providing him detailed insights into my professional capabilities and strategic thinking. Robert had used this inside information to evaluate my worthiness for promotion while simultaneously identifying which of my innovations could be appropriated for other purposes. When the opportunity arose to hire Travis, Robert had access to a complete portfolio of proven strategies that Travis could claim as his own ideas. I confronted Amanda directly about the family connection and demanded to know how much she had shared about my career with Robert. Initially, she tried to downplay their relationship, claiming they rarely discussed business matters. However, as I pressed for details about Travis's preparation for the Sterling Financial interview, her story began to unravel. Under pressure, Amanda admitted that she had mentioned some of my professional accomplishments to family members, including Robert. She claimed this was innocent conversation about my success, not deliberate intelligence gathering. However, her defensive tone suggested she understood the ethical implications of her actions. The conversation reached a breaking point when Amanda accidentally revealed knowledge she shouldn't have possessed. She mentioned that Robert had to be careful about the clause when considering my promotion, referring to some technical legal issue that only someone with access to my employment contract would know. This slip exposed the depth of Amanda's involvement in the conspiracy. She had clearly seen my confidential employment records, which meant she had deliberately accessed private information during her visits to Sterling Financial. The annual company picnic suddenly took on new significance as I realized she had used that opportunity to infiltrate the office and gather intelligence. When I demanded a full explanation, Amanda finally broke down and confessed. She admitted to copying my employee file, including my contract and performance reviews, when she visited the office during the company picnic. She had provided all of this information to Robert to help him evaluate personnel decisions and strategic planning. The betrayal was complete and devastating. My closest friend had systematically violated my privacy, stolen my professional identity, and conspired with my supervisor to sabotage my career advancement. She had used our friendship as cover for corporate espionage, all to benefit her brother's job prospects. Amanda tried to justify her actions by claiming she never intended to hurt me and assumed Sterling Financial would eventually recognize my value through other opportunities. She argued that helping family members was natural and that I would eventually receive appropriate recognition for my contributions. These excuses felt hollow and self-serving. Amanda had prioritized her brother's undeserved advancement over our friendship and my legitimate career aspirations. She had violated professional ethics, personal trust, and basic honesty in pursuit of family favoritism. The emotional impact was overwhelming. I had trusted Amanda with intimate details about my professional struggles, career goals, and innovative ideas. She had weaponized this trust against me, using our friendship to gather intelligence for a conspiracy that ultimately stole my promotion and credited my work to someone else. I left Amanda's apartment that day, knowing our friendship was permanently destroyed. The betrayal ran too deep for forgiveness or reconciliation. However, I also left with crucial information about the conspiracy's scope and the evidence I would need to pursue justice through appropriate channels. The devastating betrayal by Amanda and the revelation of Robert's family connections left me reeling, but it also crystallized my determination to fight back through legal channels. I couldn't allow this systematic theft of my career advancement to go unpunished, especially when it involved document forgery, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy among trusted individuals. I spent several days researching employment attorneys in the Phoenix metropolitan area, focusing on lawyers who specialized in workplace discrimination, contract violations, and corporate fraud. After reading reviews, examining case histories, and checking state bar ratings, I narrowed my search to 3 highly qualified candidates. Catherine Walsh stood out as the most experienced attorney for my situation. Her law firm, Walsh and Associates, operated from a professional office building in central Phoenix, and her website showcased numerous successful cases involving employment contract disputes and corporate malfeasance. Catherine had graduated from Stanford Law School 20 years earlier and built a reputation for aggressive advocacy on behalf of wronged employees. I scheduled a consultation with Catherine for the following Tuesday afternoon. Her office was decorated with legal texts, framed degrees, and photographs from various professional achievements. Catherine herself was an impressive woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a direct communication style that inspired confidence. During our initial meeting, I presented all the evidence I had gathered: photographs of my voided promotion documents, documentation of my innovative contributions to Sterling Financial, proof of Travis's hiring and his use of my intellectual property, and details about the family conspiracy involving Robert and Amanda. Catherine reviewed each piece of evidence methodically, asking probing questions about timelines, witness availability, and the strength of my documentation. She seemed particularly interested in my employment contract and asked me to obtain an official copy directly from Sterling Financial's Human Resources Department. The next morning, I returned to Sterling Financial and requested my complete employment file from Sandra Mitchell. Sandra appeared nervous about my request and asked several questions about why I needed the documents. I explained that I was reviewing my career development options and wanted to understand my contractual obligations and benefits. Sandra reluctantly provided the file after confirming my identity and having me sign a records request form. The file contained my original employment contract, all performance reviews, correspondence about my role assignments, and various administrative documents related to my tenure at the company. I delivered the complete file to Catherine that same afternoon. She immediately began examining my employment contract with intense focus, using a highlighter to mark specific clauses and provisions. After about 30 minutes of careful review, Catherine looked up with an expression of surprised satisfaction. She explained that most employment contracts heavily favor employers, particularly regarding dispute resolution procedures. Companies typically require employees to use company-selected arbitrators for workplace conflicts, and these arbitrators often have relationships with corporate clients that create inherent bias against individual employees. However, my contract with Sterling Financial contained unusual language that could work dramatically in my favor. The arbitration clause included a provision allowing employees to select their own arbitrator from a pre-approved list if they could demonstrate deliberate malfeasance by management in violation of established personnel policies. Catherine pointed out that this clause was probably added to Sterling Financial's standard contract during a previous legal settlement and never updated by their legal department. Companies often accept such provisions to resolve litigation quickly, then forget about the long-term implications for future disputes. More importantly, Catherine recognized several names on the approved arbitrator list. One name in particular caught her attention: Judge Harold Morrison, who had recently retired from the Arizona Superior Court after 25 years on the bench. Judge Morrison was famous throughout the state legal community for his aggressive stance against corporate fraud and his substantial damage awards in employment cases. Catherine explains that Judge Morrison had presided over several high-profile cases involving corporate misconduct, and he consistently ruled in favor of employees when presented with clear evidence of management wrongdoing. His reputation for thorough case analysis and fair decision-making made him an ideal arbitrator for my situation. The arbitration clause also included a damages provision that could transform my case from a simple contract dispute into a potential financial catastrophe for Sterling Financial. If employee malfeasance was proven through the arbitration process, the company would be required to pay triple damages, plus all legal fees and costs. This meant that if Judge Morrison ruled in my favor, Sterling Financial wouldn't just owe me the promotion and back pay they had denied. They would owe 3 times the calculated damages, which could include lost wages, lost commissions from legacy, client accounts, damage to my professional reputation, and emotional distress compensation. Catherine calculated that my total damages could easily exceed $200,000 when considering the salary differential, lost commission opportunities, and career setback impacts. Under the triple damages provision, Sterling Financial might face a financial obligation exceeding $600,000, plus legal fees that could add another $50,000 to $100,000 to their costs. Catherine seemed genuinely excited about the strength of my case and the favorable arbitration terms. She explained that Sterling Financial's legal department had probably never anticipated that an employee would have such comprehensive evidence of internal conspiracy and intellectual property theft. Most employment disputes involve he said, she said disagreements about workplace interactions, not documented proof of systematic fraud. The forgotten contract clause gave us tremendous leverage because Sterling Financial couldn't simply dismiss my claims or drag out the legal process indefinitely. Judge Morrison would review all evidence impartially and make binding decisions based on facts rather than corporate influence or financial pressure. Catherine agreed to represent me on a contingency fee basis, meaning I wouldn't pay legal fees unless we won the case. This arrangement allowed me to pursue justice without depleting my personal savings or taking financial risks I couldn't afford. Catherine's confidence in our success was evident in her willingness to invest her time and resources in the arbitration process. We spent the remainder of our meeting developing a comprehensive legal strategy. Catherine would file the arbitration demand with Judge Morrison within 2 weeks, including all evidence of the conspiracy, intellectual property theft, and contract violations. She would also subpoena additional documents from Sterling Financial to uncover the full scope of their fraudulent personnel practices. I left Catherine's office feeling empowered and optimistic for the first time in months. The legal system would provide an opportunity to hold Sterling Financial accountable for their systematic theft of my career advancement. More importantly, the unusual contract clause gave us tools that Sterling Financial's legal team had never anticipated facing. Catherine filed the arbitration demand with Judge Morrison exactly 2 weeks later, submitting a comprehensive package that included but all evidence of the conspiracy, intellectual property theft, and contractual violations. The legal document outlined Sterling Financial's systematic fraud in detail, demanding complete restoration of my career advancement, plus damages for their deliberate misconduct. Sterling Financial's initial response came from Marcus Webb, a senior partner at Hoffman Webb and Associates, one of Phoenix's most prestigious corporate defense firms. Marcus had built his reputation defending major corporations against employment lawsuits, and his involvement signaled that Sterling Financial was taking my claims seriously. Marcus's first letter to Catherine dismissed my allegations as baseless accusations stemming from workplace disappointment and misunderstanding of routine personnel decisions. He characterized my evidence as misinterpreted documentation and suggested that I had fabricated connections between unrelated business activities. However, Marcus's tone changed dramatically once Catherine informed him that Judge Morrison would preside over the arbitration and that we possessed documented evidence of management conspiracy. Corporate defense attorneys throughout Arizona knew Judge Morrison's reputation for thorough case analysis and his intolerance for corporate fraud. Within 48 hours of learning about Judge Morrison's involvement, Marcus contacted Catherine requesting an urgent settlement conference. This rapid shift from dismissive hostility to settlement discussions revealed Sterling Financial's genuine concern about facing arbitration under disadvantageous circumstances. The settlement meeting took place at Catherine's law firm on a Friday afternoon. Marcus arrived with an unprecedented entourage, including Robert Hartwell, Sandra Mitchell from Human Resources, and James Sterling himself, the company's chief executive officer. James rarely involved himself in employee matters, making his presence a clear indication of how seriously Sterling Financial viewed the potential threat. James Sterling was an intimidating man in his early 60s who had built Sterling Financial from a small family firm into a regional powerhouse over 3 decades. His presence at an employee grievance meeting suggested that someone had explained the catastrophic financial exposure created by the unusual arbitration clause in my employment contract. The meeting began with Marcus attempting to frame the entire situation as a regrettable misunderstanding that could be resolved through simple administrative corrections. He proposed that Sterling Financial would provide me with my original promotion plus back pay for the delayed implementation, essentially treating this as a bureaucratic error rather than intentional fraud. Catherine immediately rejected this proposal, pointing out that intellectual property theft, document forgery, and conspiracy among management required substantially more serious remediation. She emphasized that my evidence proved systematic misconduct that went far beyond a simple promotion delay. James Sterling attempted to take control of the negotiations by offering enhanced compensation packages and guarantees about future career advancement. He suggested that Sterling Financial valued my contributions and wanted to retain my services while addressing any legitimate concerns about personnel procedures. Catherine responded by presenting our evidence systematically, including photographs of my voided promotion documents, documentation of intellectual property theft, and proof of the family conspiracy involving Robert and Amanda. She also played audio recordings from her conversations with witnesses who could corroborate various aspects of Sterling Financial's fraudulent activities. As the evidence mounted, Marcus and James Sterling exchanged increasingly worried glances. They clearly hadn't anticipated the comprehensiveness of our documentation or the strength of our legal position under the arbitration clause. The turning point came when Marcus made a crucial strategic error. Under pressure from Catherine's evidence presentation and concerned about Judge Morrison's likely reaction, Marcus attempted to justify Sterling Financial's actions by claiming they had always managed talent strategically to ensure optimal placement of personnel resources. He further explained that redistributing employee innovations for maximum organizational benefit was standard practice throughout the financial services industry and didn't constitute wrongdoing under generally accepted business principles. This admission was devastating to Sterling Financial's defense. Marcus had essentially confessed that the company systematically stole employee ideas and redistributed them to preferred candidates as standard operating procedure. Catherine had recorded the entire settlement conference with all parties' consent, capturing Marcus's admission on audio. Marcus realized his mistake immediately, but the damage was done. His statement proved that my case wasn't an isolated incident of individual misconduct by Robert Hartwell and Sandra Mitchell. Instead, it revealed that Sterling Financial had implemented systematic policies designed to exploit employee contributions while blocking career advancement for unpreferred personnel. James Sterling's carefully maintained composure cracked as he recognized the legal catastrophe Marcus had created. If this pattern of conduct became public knowledge, it wouldn't just affect my individual arbitration case. It could trigger a class action lawsuit from every Sterling Financial employee who had been denied promotion under suspicious circumstances over the past several years. The implications extended beyond financial liability to include regulatory scrutiny from the Securities and Exchange Commission and state financial services oversight agencies. Investment firms must maintain certain ethical standards to preserve their licenses, and systematic employee exploitation could jeopardize Sterling Financial's ability to operate legally. Catherine pressed her advantage by pointing out that Marcus's admission created potential criminal liability for corporate fraud and conspiracy. The systematic nature of Sterling Financial's misconduct might interest federal prosecutors who specialized in white-collar crime, particularly if other employees came forward with similar experiences. James Sterling attempted damage control by claiming that Marcus had misspoken and didn't represent company policy accurately. However, Catherine noted that Marcus was Sterling Financial's chosen legal representative, and his statements during official settlement negotiations would carry significant weight with Judge Morrison. The meeting concluded with Sterling Financial requesting additional time to develop a more comprehensive settlement proposal. Catherine agreed to postpone arbitration proceedings for 2 weeks, giving them opportunity to present a serious offer that addressed the full scope of their misconduct. As the Sterling Financial representatives departed, their body language conveyed defeat and panic. They had entered the meeting expecting to pressure me into accepting minimal compensation for a simple workplace dispute. Instead, they discovered that their systematic fraud was thoroughly documented, and that they faced potential catastrophic liability under the arbitration clause they had forgotten existed. Catherine and I spent the following hour discussing our strengthened negotiating position and the likely outcomes of continued arbitration proceedings. The evidence was overwhelming. Judge Morrison's reputation favored our position, and Sterling Financial's own legal representative had admitted to systematic misconduct during recorded settlement discussions. However, Catherine also explained that other Sterling Financial employees might have similar claims if the company had been systematically stealing innovations and blocking promotions. She suggested that we consider expanding our case to include other victims, which could increase both our legal leverage and the potential financial recovery. Word about my arbitration case spread through Sterling Financial, despite management's desperate attempts to maintain secrecy. Employees began whispering about unusual legal meetings, executive panic, and rumors of systematic misconduct involving promotions and intellectual property theft. Within 1 week of our settlement conference, 3 current Sterling Financial employees contacted Catherine independently, each reporting similar experiences of blocked promotions, stolen innovations, and suspicious hiring practices. Their stories revealed that my situation wasn't isolated, but part of a comprehensive pattern of employee exploitation. The first employee to come forward was Marcus Thompson, an African-American senior analyst who had worked at Sterling Financial for 5 years. Marcus documented how his groundbreaking market research on renewable energy investments had been attributed to his manager's nephew during a presentation to the board of directors. Despite developing the entire analytical framework and supporting data, Marcus received no credit and watched his career stagnate, while his manager's relative received commendations and advancement opportunities. The second employee was Linda Rodriguez, a Latina financial planning specialist who had created an innovative client acquisition strategy that became the foundation for Sterling Financial's most successful marketing campaign. Linda's approach had generated over $3 million in new business during its first year of implementation. However, the strategy was officially credited to a recently hired male colleague who had family connections to senior management. Linda remained in her original position while watching others benefit from her creative work. The third employee was David Park, a Korean-American risk assessment analyst whose sophisticated algorithm for evaluating market volatility had become Sterling Financial's signature tool for portfolio management. David's innovation had saved the company millions of dollars in potential losses and attracted new institutional clients impressed by their advanced analytical capabilities. Despite creating this valuable intellectual property, David remained in a junior position while management hired external candidates to oversee the algorithm's implementation and development. Each employee had documented their contributions meticulously, maintaining copies of their original research correspondence about their innovations and evidence of how their work was subsequently attributed to others. Their combined evidence revealed systematic discrimination that affected multiple protected classes and violated numerous federal and state employment laws. Catherine realized that we were dealing with pervasive institutional fraud that extended far beyond simple contract violations or individual misconduct. She filed an amended arbitration demand that included all 4 employees as claimants, transforming our case into a class action with Judge Morrison presiding over multiple related claims. The expanded case attracted additional attention from Sterling Financial's leadership and legal team. James Sterling attempted damage control by firing Robert Hartwell and Sandra Mitchell, claiming they had acted without authorization and violated established company policies. However, Catherine possessed evidence proving that both employees had reported directly to James about their vowed talent management strategies and had received explicit approval for their discriminatory practices. Judge Morrison scheduled an expedited arbitration hearing after reviewing the expanded evidence package. His preliminary assessment noted that the pattern of behavior suggested willful and systematic violation of employment rights with discriminatory impact based on race, gender, and family connections. This language indicated that Judge Morrison viewed our claims as serious civil rights violations rather than routine workplace disputes. Catherine's preparation for the arbitration hearing included subpoenaing Sterling Financial's internal communications to uncover additional evidence of systematic fraud. The discovery process revealed email chains between James Sterling, Robert Hartwell, and Sandra Mitchell discussing strategies to manage ambitious employees by redistributing their contributions to more suitable candidates. The most damaging evidence came from an email James had sent to Robert 6 months earlier stating that the arbitration clause won't be a problem because no employee is smart enough to build a case that would trigger the malfeasance provision. This communication demonstrated deliberate abuse of the contract language and proved that Sterling Financial knew their actions violated employment agreements but believed they could escape accountability. The email discovery also revealed Amanda's extensive role in gathering intelligence about multiple employees, not just me. She had attended various Sterling Financial social events as Robert's niece and systematically collected information about rising talent throughout the company. Her intelligence gathering had helped management identify whose ideas to steal and whose careers to sabotage based on family connections and management preferences. Additional evidence showed that Sterling Financial had been operating this fraudulent system for over 4 years, affecting dozens of employees across multiple departments. The scope of misconduct included intellectual property theft, promotion, fraud, discriminatory hiring practices, and systematic retaliation against employees who questioned personnel decisions. Judge Morrison's review of the evidence prompted him to expand the arbitration scope to include potential criminal referrals and regulatory violations. His preliminary findings noted that Sterling Financial's conduct might violate federal securities laws, requiring ethical business practices by licensed investment firms. The discovery process also revealed Sterling Financial's desperate attempts to cover up their misconduct once my arbitration was filed. They had destroyed email records, altered personnel files, and pressured witnesses to remain silent about company practices. These obstruction activities constituted additional violations that could result in criminal charges against company leadership. Catherine informed me that Judge Morrison had privately expressed outrage about Sterling Financial's systematic exploitation of employee contributions and their discriminatory impact on minorities and women. His reputation for substantial damage awards in civil rights cases suggested that our financial recovery could exceed even the most optimistic projections. Sterling Financial's legal team made increasingly frantic settlement offers as the arbitration hearing approached. Their proposals included complete promotion restoration, substantial financial compensation policy changes, and executive terminations. However, each offer fell short of addressing the full scope of systematic fraud and its impact on multiple victims. Catherine advised accepting arbitration rather than settlement because Judge Morrison's ruling would create legal precedent that could protect other employees throughout the financial services industry. A comprehensive arbitration award would also ensure that Sterling Financial faced appropriate consequences for their systematic civil rights violations. The arbitration hearing was scheduled for the following month, giving Catherine time to prepare comprehensive testimony from all 4 employee claimants and various witnesses who could corroborate Sterling Financial's fraudulent practices. The case had evolved from my individual promotion dispute into a landmark civil rights action with implications extending far beyond our specific claims. The arbitration hearing took place in a spacious conference room at the Phoenix Bar Association building on a clear Tuesday morning in late spring. Judge Morrison, a distinguished gentleman in his late 60s with penetrating gray eyes and an authoritative presence, had reviewed all preliminary evidence and expressed his intention to conduct a thorough examination of Sterling Financial's practices. Catherine arrived early to organize our extensive documentation, including witness statements, email evidence, financial records, and expert testimony about industry standards for intellectual property protection and promotion procedures. Our case had grown into a comprehensive demonstration of systematic civil rights violations that affected multiple protected classes. Sterling Financial's legal team appeared increasingly desperate as the hearing began. Marcus Webb brought 2 additional attorneys and a team of paralegals, suggesting they recognized the serious threat to their clients' financial stability and regulatory standing. James Sterling attended the hearing personally, accompanied by several board members who seemed deeply concerned about potential liability exposure. Judge Morrison began the proceedings by outlining the scope of claims and evidence he would consider. He noted that the case had evolved beyond simple contract disputes to encompass allegations of systematic discrimination, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to defraud multiple employees of legitimate career advancement opportunities. Catherine presented our case methodically, starting with my individual experience and expanding to demonstrate the pattern of misconduct affecting Marcus Thompson, Linda Rodriguez, and David Park. She used visual aids to show how Sterling Financial had systematically identified talented employees, stolen their innovations, and redistributed credit to preferred candidates based on family connections rather than merit. The evidence presentation included audio recordings of Marcus Webb's admission that Sterling Financial redistributed employee innovations for maximum organizational benefit as standard practice. Judge Morrison's expression showed clear disapproval as he realized that Sterling Financial's own legal representative had confessed to systematic intellectual property theft during recorded settlement negotiations. Catherine also presented the damaging email evidence showing James Sterling's knowledge and approval of discriminatory practices. The email stating that employees weren't smart enough to build a case that would trigger the malfeasance provision particularly outraged Judge Morrison, who noted that such statements demonstrated deliberate contempt for employee rights and legal obligations. Sterling Financial's defense attempted to characterize the misconduct as isolated actions by rogue employees who violated company policy without authorization. However, Judge Morrison noted that the evidence showed systematic patterns extending over multiple years and affecting numerous employees across different departments. Marcus Webb's attempts to minimize the evidence fell flat as Judge Morrison questioned him directly about his earlier admission of systematic intellectual property redistribution. Marcus struggled to explain how his previous statements could be reconciled with Sterling Financial's current claims of policy violations by unauthorized personnel. James Sterling's testimony proved particularly damaging to their defense. Under oath, he attempted to deny knowledge of discriminatory practices despite email evidence showing his direct involvement in policy development and implementation. Judge Morrison's cross-examination exposed multiple inconsistencies between James's testimony and documented communications. The hearing concluded after 2 full days of testimony and evidence presentation. Judge Morrison announced that he would issue a comprehensive written decision within 30 days addressing all claims related to contract violations, intellectual property theft, discriminatory practices, and appropriate remediation measures. 3 weeks later, Judge Morrison's decision arrived as a 47-page document that systematically dismantled Sterling Financial's defense and ruled decisively in favor of all 4 employee claimants. His findings included willful contract violation, systematic discrimination based on race and gender, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to defraud employees of legitimate career advancement. Under the contract's triple damages clause, Judge Morrison awarded me complete restoration of my senior investment advisor position, retroactive to the original promotion date, plus triple damages totaling $420,000. The calculation included lost salary, missed commission opportunities from legacy client accounts, damage to my professional reputation, and emotional distress compensation. Marcus Thompson received $375,000 in triple damages for systematic racial discrimination and intellectual property theft. Linda Rodriguez was awarded $410,000 for gender discrimination and stolen innovations that generated substantial company revenue. David Park received $390,000 for discriminatory treatment and theft of his valuable risk assessment algorithm. Judge Morrison also ordered comprehensive policy changes at Sterling Financial, including independent oversight of promotion procedures, mandatory bias training for all management personnel, and annual employment practice audits by external consultants. The company would submit to federal monitoring for 3 years to ensure compliance with civil rights laws. The financial impact on Sterling. Financial exceeded $1.6 million in direct damages, plus legal fees and costs approaching another $300,000. The regulatory scrutiny and reputation damage created additional costs as institutional clients questioned their commitment to ethical business practices. 6 months after Judge Morrison's ruling, my life had transformed dramatically. I thrived in my senior investment advisor role, managing several legacy client accounts and consistently exceeding performance targets. The position provided intellectual challenges, financial rewards, and professional respect that validated years of dedicated effort. The experience taught me invaluable lessons about workplace dynamics, corporate culture, and the importance of documenting professional contributions. I learned to trust my instincts when something felt wrong and to pursue accountability through appropriate legal channels rather than accepting injustice quietly. The betrayal by Amanda forced me to develop better judgment about people's motivations and to recognize when personal relationships might conflict with professional integrity. While losing that friendship hurt deeply, I gained confidence in my ability to identify and address ethical violations in workplace settings. The arbitration ruling became a landmark case study in employment law circles, demonstrating how forgotten contract provisions could create unexpected liability for companies that systematically violated employee rights. Other corporations throughout the financial services industry reviewed their practices to avoid similar exposure, leading to improved workplace fairness for countless employees. Catherine Walsh gained national recognition for her handling of our case, and she used that platform to advocate for stronger employee protections against intellectual property theft and discriminatory promotion practices. Our victory inspired other employment attorneys to look more carefully at arbitration clauses that might favor employee claimants. Marcus Thompson, Linda Rodriguez, and David Park all received promotions and recognition appropriate to their contributions. Marcus became Sterling Financial's Director of Alternative Investment Research, Linda was promoted to Senior Client Development Manager, and David became Chief Risk Assessment Officer. Their success demonstrated that merit-based advancement could work when discriminatory barriers were removed. The most important lesson from this experience was that corporate injustice often relies on employee silence and isolation. Systematic exploitation continues when victims accept unfair treatment quietly or assume they lack power to challenge institutional misconduct. By refusing to accept theft of my career advancement and building a strong legal case with proper documentation, I proved that individuals could hold powerful institutions accountable for systematic violations of employee rights. Never underestimate the importance of reading your employment contract, carefully documenting your professional contributions systematically, and seeking qualified legal advice when you suspect workplace misconduct. The most sophisticated corporate fraud schemes can be defeated when victims refuse to remain silent and pursue justice through appropriate legal channels. My victory proved that even well-connected family conspiracies couldn't survive comprehensive legal scrutiny when faced with documented evidence and competent legal representation. The forgotten arbitration clause in my contract became the key to unlocking justice, but only because I had the courage to fight back against systematic injustice and theft of my professional achievements. Have you ever experienced workplace situations where your contributions weren't properly recognized, or where you suspected unfair treatment in promotion decisions? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if my story resonated with your own professional challenges. Subscribe to hear more stories about standing up to corporate injustice, and please share this with anyone who might be facing similar workplace issues. Thank you for listening, and remember that you have more power than you think when you're willing to fight for what's right.